Alright, let's get ready for the test on this inequality unit. Again, like always, make sure you show your work and your thinking for each one of the problems and then circle your answer. And because we're solving inequalities, we just need to remember that we solve inequalities just like we solve equations, same skills, same techniques, everything. We're using these inverse operations and all that sort of stuff. We just want to make sure that if we ever multiply or divide both sides by a negative as we're going through and solving, that we switch the direction of the inequality. I do want to point out that we are going to solve each one of these, but we're only going to graph the solutions to the odd problems. So keep that in mind. You don't need to graph every single one of these. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's solve this first one. First thing we're going to do is we're going to add 14 to both sides to isolate that variable term there. So we end up with x over 3. Now we're adding, so that doesn't change the direction of the inequality, so that's going to stay a less than, and then when we add 14, we're going to end up with negative 8. And then we're going to multiply both sides by 3 to get rid of dividing by 3. So those are going to cancel, and we end up with x. We're multiplying by a positive 3, so that doesn't change the direction. So we get negative 24 over on this side. And again, just because there's a negative in the answer doesn't mean we have to switch the directions. It's the steps that we're taking to solve the inequality. It's the things that we're doing to both sides that can change the direction of the inequality. So this is the answer. Always best to read the inequality from the variable. In this particular case, it is on the left, so it's pretty easy to read. So x is less than negative 24. So I'm going to put 0 on here for a reference, negative 24 on here because it's the most important number on this particular number line. We are not going to fill it in because it says it's going to be strictly less than negative 24. So the answers are less than 24, so we're going to shade to the left side. Again, we'll just do a little bit of shading there. Okay, on to the next one. We're going to multiply both sides by 2. And again, all I'm thinking is I'm multiplying by a positive 2, so that doesn't change the direction. So I get negative 21 minus 3x less than or equal to, this is a negative 48. We're then going to add 21 to both sides. Again, adding doesn't change the direction of the inequality, so we're going to leave it a less than or equal to. When we put these together, we get a negative 27. And then the last thing we're going to do to finish this off is we're going to divide by negative 3. Now, because we're dividing by a negative, we do switch the direction of the inequality. So this switches from a less than or equal to a greater than or equal to. And over on this side we have a 9. Just circle that and we're done. We don't have to do anything else because it's an even problem and we're not going to graph any of those. So let's take a look at the next one. We're going to subtract 8. Negative 4n. Subtracting doesn't change the direction. This is a 32. We're going to divide both sides by negative 4. That is going to change the direction, so we change the direction here and we get a negative 8. Read from the variable, n is greater than negative 8. So here's 0, here's negative 8. We're going to circle that. Again, we're not going to fill it in. But the answers, the n's that are the answers to this inequality, have to be greater than 8. So if the answers are greater than negative 8, so if they're greater than negative 8, then they're on this side, they're on the right. Okay. Next one, you'll notice that we have to do a little bit of combining of like terms here. So I'm going to leave the negative 2 here. All we're doing on this side is just simplifying, so that certainly can't change the direction of the inequality. Let's put the two of those together. That would be negative x, then plus 8. Then we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. That doesn't change the direction of the inequality. This is a negative 10. And we've got negative x here. So we're going to go through and we're going to divide both sides by a negative. Again, dividing by a negative is going to switch the direction of the inequality. So we end up with a 10 here. We're going to change that to a less than, and on this side we get an x. So if we were to read this, this would be x is greater than 10, or the answers are greater than 10. But that's it right there. Next one, we've got some distributing to do, so let's be careful with this. Make sure we get both of those. So this is negative 1/3 m, and then 1/3 of negative 12 would be negative 4. Doesn't change the direction of the inequality because we're just simplifying here. We're just distributing, just like collecting like terms on that last one didn't change it. Nothing's going to change here. So we're going to add 4 to both sides. And let's see here. So we get negative 1/3 m less than or equal to negative 21. And then we are going to, let's see, we've got a fraction in front of the variable, so we're going to multiply by the reciprocal, so that's going to be negative 3 over 1, or just negative 3. The negatives are going to cancel, the 3's are going to cancel, so we end up with m on this side. We're multiplying by a negative, so we have to switch the direction of the inequality. Alright, and then this is going to be a 63, so we'll go ahead and circle that. So the answers are greater than or equal to 63, so I'm going to put 0 here, I'm going to put 63 over here, circle it. We are going to fill it in because it can actually equal that, and then the answers are greater than that, so we are going to shade to the right. So there we go. Next one, we are going to distribute this negative 7 through. Some people will look at this and forget the order of operations, and they'll do the 30 minus 7, and they'll have a 23 out front, and then they'll distribute the 23. Remember, we do multiplication before we do addition or subtraction, so we're going to distribute that through. So we have 30 minus 14 minus 35v, and then greater than negative 19. Again, just because we were multiplying by a negative doesn't mean we switch the direction, because all we were doing is distributing through. We were doing some simplification. You'll notice we multiplied negative 7 through to the 2 and the 5. We didn't multiply the entire side by negative 7, and we certainly didn't multiply the other side by negative 7. So all we're just doing here is just distributing and simplifying. Collect some like terms, so we end up with 16 minus 35v greater than negative 19. Subtract 16, so negative 35v greater than, let's see, negative 35, and we're going to divide both sides by negative 35. And dividing by a negative is going to switch the direction, so we're going to change this to a less than. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 35 divided by 35 is 1. So we get v is less than 1. Alright. Nothing to do on this side, but we do have some simplifying to do over here. So we get 3b plus 11 less than or equal to, let's see what we've got here. Let's do the variables first. So we'll put those together. We end up with a 4b minus 5. I'm going to go ahead and move the smallest one. I'm going to move this one right here. So we're going to subtract 3b from both sides, and I'm going to add 5 to both sides. Okay, so I moved this one over here, it becomes negative. Move this one over there, it becomes positive. So what we've got here is we've got a 16. All we're doing is adding and subtracting from both sides, so that doesn't change the direction of the inequality, and we end up with just a b right here. So the cool thing about that is that's the answer right there, and then we're ready to graph this. So this is 0, this is 16. We are going to fill that in. The answers, the b's, are greater than the 16. Again, that small point is pointing toward the small one, alligators eating the big one, all that sort of stuff. So the big one's on the right side of b, or sorry, the right side of 16. Okay, distribute through here, more simplification. You'll notice that we've got some decimals on this. So let's see, I believe that's 16.8 m. And when we multiply here, that's going to be a positive, and if you stop and think about that for a second, 8 times 9, 72, so this is going to be 7.2, and that's a positive, and then we've got that positive 6.8 m. We are going to combine some like terms here, so we've got 15.2 on this side, and then let's see, if we put the two of those together, let's see, we end up with negative 10 m, and then plus 7.2. We're going to move this to the other side by subtracting. Again, nothing that we've done so far is going to change the direction of the inequality. This is going to give us an 8 and negative 10 m, and then finally we're going to divide by negative 10. Now, we could reduce this fraction and write this as negative 4/5, but remember the original problem was written with decimals, so we'll go ahead and write the answer as a decimal. This is going to be negative 0.8, and we do have to switch the direction because this last step right here we divided by a negative, so we're going to switch the direction right here. And so again, reading this backwards, we get m is greater than negative 0.8. Okay, last couple on this side. Let's see. Again, nothing to do on this side, so we'll just leave that alone. Negative 5.6, and then what we're distributing through is the negative, so this is going to be a negative times a negative is a positive. So positive 6x, and this is going to be negative 2.2. So negative 117.6. We'll combine those like terms right there. That's going to be 7.8. So negative 7.8 plus 6x. Move this one to the other side. So we're going to add 7.8 to both sides. So let's see what we get here. If we were to throw that in the calculator or do that by hand, we're going to end up with negative 109.8. Again, we haven't done anything to change the direction of the inequality so far, and it looks like we're not going to be doing anything that does that. So we're going to divide by 6, positive 6, so that doesn't change it. So we end up with an x over here. We're going to leave that reading backwards a less than, and I'm going to throw this one in the calculator really quickly. We've got negative, whoops, clear that off, negative 109.8 divided by 6, negative 18.3, so negative 18.3, and there's our answer. So I'm going to put 0 here. I'm going to put negative 19 right here, and I'm going to put negative 18 right there. So negative 18.3 would be somewhere right around there. I will go ahead and label that one negative 18.3 so everybody knows what we're looking at right there. And then the answers are less than negative 18.3. Again, x is less than negative 18.3. So we're going to be going in this direction right here. We're going to be going to the left, the less than side. Okay. Last one on this side. Let's see. I'm going to move the x over here, and I'm going to move the 6 over here. Again, changing signs. We're going to add 6 to both sides and subtract x. That doesn't change the direction at all, so we end up with x on this side, and we end up with a 4 on this side, and that's it. Done. End of story on that particular one. Okay. Next, these problems look a little bit more complicated, so let's just be careful as we go through and do these. We don't have anything to combine here. We do have a couple things to combine here, so let's go ahead and put the r's together. That's a negative 6r, and that's a plus 9. And I'm going to move the smaller one, so I'm going to add 6r to this side, and I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides there. So let's see, we get 4r and less than, because all we were doing is adding and subtracting. We get an 8 right here, so we'll divide by 4, and this works out pretty nicely. We're dividing by a positive, so we don't change the direction. So we've just got r is less than 2, so 0, 2, don't fill it in, and we're going to shade less than, so shade to the left. This one here is a little more complicated, so let's see what we've got. Nothing to change here. And we do have a couple things we can take care of here. This is 12.975. If we put the two of those together, this is 3.15 minus 0.4. So if you throw that in a calculator, or you do a little bit of mental arithmetic there, you're going to get 2.75n. And then let's move this over to that side. Oh, let's see, let's move the smaller one. There we go. So we're going to subtract 0.6n from both of these, 0.6n here, which means I want to move this one over there. So we're going to subtract 12.975. Subtract 12.975. So those will cancel each other out, and those will cancel each other out. So let's see, we're just doing subtracting, so that's not going to change the direction. If we put the two of these together, this is 2.75 minus 0.60, so that's going to be 2.15n on this side. And then I'm going to throw that in the calculator. That looks pretty nasty. Let's see what we've got there. 7.6 minus 12, whoops, 12.975 975, and we end up with 5.375. So negative 5.375, and then we'll go ahead and divide both sides by 2.15. And dividing by positive 2.15 is not going to change the direction, so we're going to leave it like this. And then we're going to throw that in the calculator, so we're going to take that last answer and we're going to divide it by 2.15, and we end up with negative 2.5. So negative 2.5, and again, no need to graph that one. Let's see, 33 plus 4x, nothing to simplify over there. Some distributing, we are going to distribute a negative through, but it's all we're doing is just simplifying that side. We're not multiplying both sides by a negative, so we don't have to switch the direction. Let's see, add x to both sides, subtract 33 from both sides, so we get 5x. Again, we were just adding or subtracting, so that's not going to change the direction. Divide by 5, so those will cancel, so we get x is, we divided by a positive, so we don't change the direction. We get x is less than or equal to negative 8. So here's 0, here's negative 8. We are going to fill it in, and then x is less than or equal to negative 8. So the answers are less than negative 8, so we're going to go in this direction right there. And then last one, look at this big ugly thing here. So let's see, we'll go ahead and distribute through. Negative 18r minus 6 minus 7r. Not changing the direction because all we're doing is simplifying. Negative 10r minus, 12r plus, that is going to be a minus 9. Let's make sure we get that right. Okay, collect like terms. Putting these together, we get negative 25r minus 6. Putting these together, we get negative 22r minus 9. Move the smaller ones, so we're going to move the 25r over here. So if we're going to move that over here, we want to move the 9 to the other side, so we're going to add 9. So that's going to be a 3. And again, all we've been doing is adding and subtracting here. A little bit of simplification along the way. Divide by 3 doesn't change the direction, so we get 1 greater than or equal to r, or read backwards, r is less than or equal to 1. But we don't have to graph it, so we're done with that one. Let's keep going here. Write an inequality to represent the situation, then solve the inequality. So we have to do both. So we want to make sure we're clear on what part of the writing the inequality and making sure that that's right, and then solving it and making sure we get the right answer. So let's go ahead and look at this one. It says twice a number decreased by 7 is at least 25. Twice a number, so twice a number, that would be 2x. Decreased by 5, if we decreased by 7. If we decrease it by 7, we're going to subtract 7. And then what we're comparing it to is 25. And it says this stuff has to be at least 25. That means the smallest it can be is 25. That means it's got to be bigger than 25. So greater than, and remember it says at least, so it can be, the smallest it could be is 25, so it could actually be 25. So there's the inequality. You're going to get points for doing that. And then we want to solve that inequality, and hopefully we're pretty good at this by now. So let's go ahead and add 7 to both sides. So that would be 2x greater than or equal to, this would be a 32. We're going to divide both sides by 2, so we're going to have x is greater than or equal to 16. There's the answer on that one. Similar to one of the ones that we had on our assignment, it says a cell company offers a cell phone service for $15 a month plus 15 cents a call. Your budget allows you to spend at most $23 a month on phone service. What is the maximum number of calls you can make each month? Okay, so we're going to pay $15 just to have the phone. Then we're going to pay 15 cents per call. So I'm going to use a C for call. And over here I'm going to write C equals number of calls. And we can spend $23 a month. So we're comparing our phone bill that's structured like this to the $23 that we have budgeted for this. Now we can spend the $23, but we can't spend more than $23. So we've got to spend less than $23, or it could actually equal $23. So we'll finish solving this. We're going to subtract 15. Whoops, let me go ahead and circle that to make clear This is what the inequality is that we've translated. So this is going to be 0.15c less than or equal to, and let's see what we get here. 23 minus 15 is 8. So then we're going to divide by 0.15 and let's see what we get. We may get lucky and this may work out evenly, but I doubt it. So let's check and see what we've got here. 8 divided by 0.15, 53.33. So 53.33 repeated. Now that's the answer to the inequality, but that's not the answer to the question, because the question says what's the maximum number of calls you can make. Well, we can't make a third of a phone call. We can't make 0.3 of a phone call. So what we do here is we would round that down, or yeah, we'll just call it rounding. So we can make 53 calls, and we'll circle that and then we're done. We could even say a max of 53 calls. Max of 53 calls. That would be good there. Okay. This one should look familiar. Ty received quiz grades of 86, 76, and 91. What grade would we need on the fourth quiz to earn a B average? That's at least 80%. And then part B is for Ty to get an A, it says, is it possible for Ty to get an A average? In other words, at least 90%. So remember, he's taken 3. So here's the first one, second one, and third one. We don't know what his fourth quiz is, but we do know how to average 4 things. So we're going to take 86 plus 76 plus 91 plus his next quiz score. We're going to call that X. X is fourth quiz score. We're going to divide that by 4, and he wants to get at least a B, so that's at least an 80%. So we're going to compare that to 80%. He's okay if he gets more than 80%, but he's also okay if he gets exactly 80%. So there's the inequality that we're going to set up here. So that's the answer as far as inequality goes for the first part. Let's kind of simplify this just a little bit. If we add those together, so let's just check and see. Write this in a little bit easier format. So we've got 86 plus 76 plus 91 equals, so this is 253. So 253 plus X over 4. So this would be all the points that he earns on those 4 quizzes divided by 4. It's greater than or equal to 80. So we'll multiply both sides by 4. So this is going to be 253 plus X greater than or equal to, this is going to be 320. And then we're going to subtract that 253. So if we subtract the 253, we end up with X is greater than or equal to, let's see, what have we got here? 67 or something like that, 87, let's check and see. 320 minus 253, and we end up with 67. There you go. Okay, so all he needs is a 67. Okay, so we're going to say, what grade would he need to get on the fourth quiz to average at least a B, 80%? So he only needs a 67. So we're going to say at least 67%. Okay, and we'll circle that answer. So there's our inequality. There's the answer to the inequality, but then we want to interpret that. Now, let's see if it's possible for Ty to get an A. That would be 90%. So here's what he would have to do for that. We'd take those 253 points. I'm actually going to change colors here. We'd take those 253 points. We'd add his fourth quiz score, divide it by 4, and now this time we want him to get above a 90. So remember, we did one of these before in the notes. What happens to this is when we multiply here, we end up with a 360. So when we multiply by 4, we end up with 253 plus X greater than or equal to 360. And if you subtract 253 from that, you get X is greater than or equal to 107. Yeah, 107. So, is it possible? Not possible without extra credit. Okay, and we'd say needs 107. 107%, okay, and that's probably not going to happen. Okay, let's take a look at these last couple. These are multiple choice questions, so we want to make sure that we interpret these correctly, because all we've got to do is just pick the right one and we're all set to go. So on number 18 it says a store sells iPhones and Droids. The store makes $40 profit on each iPhone and $55 profit on each Droid. The store wants to make a profit of at least $375 each day from cell phone sales. Which inequality describes this situation? So they want to make at least $375. So they're okay with $375. They'd be okay with more. They're not okay with less than $375. So you'll notice the structure of these is all the same, and you might want to just think about why. 40 times I plus 55 times D. $40 profit on each iPhone, so 40 times the number of iPhones sold. $55 profit on each Droid, so 55D. So notice that this setup part here, every single one of those is the same. Okay. The question is, if the store wants to make at least $375, which of these describes the situation? So this is where their sales are less than $375. This is where their sales are greater than $375. Less than or equal to $375. So gosh, we can cross off these immediately. It's just down to the two of those. So which of these two represents the fact that they're okay with a profit of $375 or more? They want to make at least $375. Well, this one is strictly greater than $375. That means they want to make more than $375. This one right here with the equal to, this is okay. This is the one that we want. Okay. This one wouldn't be the end of the world, but that's not the right answer on a strict interpretation of what at least means. So we want to make sure that we grab this one. Okay. Let's see. Mr. Laws wrote 8 less than 3 times a number is more than 15 on the board. If x represents the number, which inequality is a correct translation of this statement? 8 less than 3 times a number. Okay, remember the than clues us in that we're going to be doing a little bit of subtracting and switch that order. So we'd do 3 times a number, and then we're going to subtract 8, and then it says is more than 15. So it's got to be more than 15. We're comparing it to 15, but this stuff has got to be more than 15. So that's strictly greater than, so that's going to be this one right here. This one says it's less. This one says it's less. This one says it's greater than. Not that one. We just want this one right here. So there's the answer. And then the last one here is, what is the greatest whole number, x, for which 3x minus 3x is less than 11? So we actually have to go through and solve this, but they gave this to us. So this is going to be x is less than, let's see, that's going to be 3 2/3. And that's going to be the same as 3.6 repeated. And it says, what is the greatest whole number for x for which 3x is less than 11? So x has got to be less than 3 2/3. It's got to be smaller than 3 2/3. Well, the greatest number, the biggest number that's smaller than 3 2/3 would be 3. It's not going to be 4 because 4 is a little bit bigger than that right there. And then these are just kind of silly answers, just distractors. Okay, hopefully you're in good shape. Study this, make sure you know these inside out and backwards, and you'll be in great shape for the test.